everybody, I'm here with another video. Today I thought we'd look at an older game. This is between Go Seigen and Sakata, both very strong, almost legendary, or maybe they are legendary players. I thought this game would be interesting because, well, you'll see why. Basically, this game is a lot about Ko, a lot of deep reading. I'm not going to go too deep into it just because, like, this kind of game is very technical, and I think that both can be overwhelming, and I am not super strong enough to really give all the details, but I'll just give it an overall flow. And I thought it was really cool to look at this kind of one central idea that many amateurs are not comfortable with, and honestly, it's not because they don't understand it, but just because it is very risky, or not risky. It's you have to be absolutely sure. You cannot be wrong, or else the game will just fall apart on you. And to be honest, there's many parts of Go that are like this, but it's usually not as transparent as this. Okay, so we have a pretty typical opening. White maybe could choose this direction. This is also very common, but White's plan here is to emphasize the development, or the game around the development to the bottom left by facing it from both directions. And so now both directions are Miai. Obviously this is also symmetric in another sense, right? This is rotationally symmetric, and this is like diagonally symmetric. But that's fine. This choice basically means that White's going to respond from one approach with the other enclosure to keep the game centered around kind of this development on the bottom side. If Black approached the upper left, obviously it would be the same position, just flipped. Black backs off. This is very traditional, very normal. If we choose a modern setting, maybe we'd look at a double approach, but we have to be careful because when White pushes out, or probably jump, this is all very normal. We're kind of ending up with a low position on the bottom, which could get pressed into making a very flat framework on the bottom, which would not be a very efficient use of our bottom left corner. And so then Black would be banking on this Moyo development. So it really depends on who gets the top side then, because obviously if White gets it, then White will have a Moyo that extends moving towards Black's Moyo, and if Black gets it, obviously it moves towards White's potential framework. But that seems like a lot of things that Black has to worry about. White could just, settle like this, and then pincer even, or just very simply turn. Now if Black extends to defend, then White can get the top, which is the concern. So Black just backs off. This is very normal. Now White has to deal with R4 because these stones have gotten stronger. But if White just plays a normal defensive move, like a Kosumi, then these stones have a hard time projecting their strength. So that's not going to be very good. On the other hand, if White goes for something very far, it's very easy for Black to just double approach and then counter pincer, or pincer, with the backup. And it's kind of a similar result. So White doesn't really want to play so ambitiously, but White also doesn't want to play something super defensive either, which has no impact, right? Now Black can just take the top. And if we just look at the board, maybe this is like an even-ish corner, but then White has this corner versus the other two, and Black's extension is kind of like perfect, right? Because it's the middle of a symmetric position, so Black got to the key point first. So White comes in. This is to give... White is not actually really meaning to invade here, or to attack this stone, which you might think because this is a typical looking attack. But actually White's purpose here is to build momentum for himself. So since Black is going to jump, this kind of move would be really passive. Now White has some Aji to handle R4 with this stone, so maybe now White just takes a large point. And now if we go back to something like this, if we have this kind of follow-up, these kind of continuations are more difficult for Black to handle because White can make a nice base in the corner. And it's like, there's not really much for Black to do here. So White comes in to build momentum for himself to push out. So now White gets to develop, but now if Black just comes back and takes the stone, right, like very simple, now White can take Sente. Compared to the other variation, Black could, if White just backed off, or played, sorry, this one, then black could take Sente. So the difference is by making this small momentum-producing sacrifice and injecting Aji into the position, white is aiming to get Sente. So black, this is typical Joseki, except L3 is not normally here. And black wants to pincer here to, again, develop the right, not make it so easy on white. And black would like to capture this stone, but this is, in our last variation, very defensive. It puts no pressure on white. So by pincering here, we get white to push, which is which allows us to extend. And after a few extensions, we get to take or roughly seal the N3 stone off, which is what we wanted to do anyway. But we put this stone here to get white to do it for us. So this created a momentum, choshi. It's not really momentum, it's like flow. It's hard to translate. But it created a flow for white to force us into taking these stones. I think the English translation is usually inducing move. It induced white, or we played a move that made white induce us to take the stone. Now, if white pincers, which would be maybe a normal intuition, black can counter pincer, and even if we take the stone, it's very small, right? So white extends instead, and if black pincers, which I think black doesn't, yeah, then even if white just takes a corner, white's actually quite okay. You might be hesitant because now you're like, oh, isn't Q8 in a good spot? It's true, but Q8's relatively small because black would have been very strong here, and we're already strong here. We have the kick at Q3 anytime, we have the attachment at R8, and we can still get out into the center. So it's kind of in a good place, but white's pretty happy getting the extra points, because if you look at the whole board, Q8's not really in the most ideal attacking position. It's not the most ideal place overall. So black backs off. This is natural, still reducing the top potential and aiming at attacking R14 more severely, so white has to defend that. It's a very natural development. Black kicks, reinforces the corner, makes us a little over-concentrated. White already had a lot of center presence, so making white a little bit stronger in the center doesn't cost too much. And then moving out, right? If we just moved out right away, then this doesn't put as much pressure on white, because white can just move out. Probably not this one, actually, probably this one. And these stones, because they have the potential to move into the corner, if you try to kick later, white will just be like, okay, thank you for the 2 stones, you get your solid corner, but this is much bigger. So this is kind of the proper ordering, proper flow for the board. Oh, white does press, okay. This is very important, base of both groups. If white gets P2, I don't think black answers here. Oh, black does answer. If white did get P2, this cut becomes problematic. So when white cuts, then you have to defend here anyway, and then you are behind in the center. And if white gets this and somehow cuts, this whole group is very unstable and not profitable. White makes a very nice attachment here. This is normal. If black, for the most conservative, want to block, but then this empty triangle looks really silly, and white can get this Hana to take advantage of the liberty issues on L3. Even if you Atari up, it's like, what do you really do next? It's kind of hard. There's a little bit of ladder problems. You could live, but these get cut off. Yeah, actually you can't live, sorry. So black just extends. This is the most solid response, but this means that there's now a lot of cutting Aji here, which means that there's potential for these to get short on liberties with things like a net or something in the future, if white gets a little bit more reinforcement. White peeps to make black heavy, and then pushes again, I guess. If black extends, I think we're looking at this kind of continuation. Alternatively, we could extend here and be like, okay, are we just going to keep making these kind of exchanges, and then this is going to get swallowed. But black just wants to defend first, so white comes back to play here, threatening the cut. So black defends, and we defend our cut too. Which is natural, because if we don't want to have black jumping here and Sente aiming at the cut. And these are very heavy. So far, this game seems to be having a fairly good flow for white. Basically, white has this very nice enclosure. White has, this is basically alive, and this group is fairly alive with a large corner. Black has a lot of profit here, though. but black's group is quite weak. So I think the opening up to here is fairly successful for white. I think maybe black should have fought harder earlier, but you know, it's a game. Black caps, white comes out, and then black plays this move, which is primarily saying going to reduce the upper left, aiming at f17 as a follow-up, and indirectly helping our group. We want to play high because it's closer to the center, so when we're running out towards the center, maybe we can use that stone a bit. White defends the corner, very solid. White's actually aiming at a follow-up cut, but white's it's not going to kill, but it's a very good squeeze to get sente moves over here, which will help in the upcoming attack. So the idea is that we're making ourselves stronger to attack this group in the future. Black plays here because if without it, after this, and the cut potential here, moves around here become forcing, which black doesn't like. We jump, very calm, making headway towards the top, potentially isolating J16, and obviously eyeing the group in the center. I think black defends the center group, yeah, and white comes in. There is some cutting potential, but black has kind of a weak group here and a weak group here, so it's too early to do that, so I'm pretty sure we just defend, make ourselves strong before aiming at any craziness. And white comes into the corner, black descends, white slides. White's actually not going to try to live here. These are actually also momentum building moves. Because white could have lived like this. This is a very common sequence. Or maybe this one is easier. But you notice that now we're starting to get isolated, and this thinness and these stones are very weak after the descent here. So that's not what white's trying to do at all. White is trying to build momentum by forcing black to play around here, and then taking advantage of the shortage of liberties on black stones. So now, if white gets very strong with this connection, this corner is not yet alive, but if black is forced to take it off the board, that'll give white a lot of forcing moves on the outside, which reinforces indirectly this cut. It's kind of a cool tactic. This peeps just to make black heavy, and then we come back. Black just takes the corner. I don't believe this works because just cut, right? Like this. Yeah, and the corner would die. So we have to take the corner. White plays here. This is a very nice shape for white. And black has to kill the corner. Now there's still a lot of potential here, and we notice again, we got these extra reinforcing moves by sacrificing some points, and we built up this momentum, like inducing black to make us get these moves that we wanted anyway. It's much better than directly trying to attack. White defends here. This is really big. It's both the base of two groups, right? It also reactivates the Aji of N10, so it's attacking this group. Quite normal. Black wants to live, so black plays some squeezing moves. And if white had gone here, which would be fine to connect, then black could play here and take the stones, making good shape. So white wants to connect, but then black gets to take the stone and gets an eye. Still, there's this cutting potential, and now we notice the wedge at N8, so black has to defend that, which means white pushes out to separate, and black has to push out. And through this whole thing, these stones have become a little bit weak, and so now this whole group for white is not really in danger. It's pretty strong, which means that these stones are kind of getting weak, and this is still only one eye running into the center. So we just notice a very natural, nice attacking flow for for white. Sorry. Black plays here, trying to destabilize this group. If black runs out, right, and later in the future black is out like this, or white is out, sorry, I keep mixing it, and black plays here, maybe this isn't really sente, because white's already out and so has more options, so we want to do this before that happens. White makes the wedge, which is natural. This is all forced, which was because of the cutting potential at M3, the shortage of liberties, that these are all sente. But black didn't want to block here, because if you block, and white connects, now there's these cuts anyway, so you have to defend. And then white can get a nice forcing move here, and then maybe just move to the center to take advantage. Actually, probably might be able to hana it, hard to say. I'd have to read it more. It looks actually kind of possible, like this capturing race. But I think black is okay, actually. So maybe not. I'm not sure then why black didn't block here. It's also possible that white might push. I want to say that white might play this Ko shape, in which case now black has to live with this. Otherwise white can push an Atari and take away the eye, and then threaten, use the Ko to live, but I'm not entirely sure, so I'll leave it. I won't say I know what that is exactly. But these are all forced, and then white comes back to defend the corner. Black makes this exchange first to make some eye shape and then lives. If black runs out, it's always a liability later that this is good endgame and that, you know, you'll have to play a move like this, but if white is... that means that this cut threatens black, so black would have to come back anyway, which means that invasions on the bottom suddenly become much more viable because any move around here is forcing, and it's much easier to handle your stones. Okay, so black lives, and now let's take a look at the board. Black has actually a decent amount of points now, right? Because we had to sacrifice these, although they still have quite a bit of Aji. And black has this bottom development, white just has this corner, and this corner is not totally secure, and this profit is decently big actually, but it's still open over here, so we can only really count like 15, 8, 17 points, whereas this corner is much more than that, and combined with the bottom. So white defends our group, makes ourselves solid, and black takes the last large point on the bottom. And then we just come back and seal black. Black has to answer this because of the shortage of liberties, but it feels like, on the one hand, I personally like white. White has a lot of strength and attacking potential, but many players, I think, would say, you know, black's not bad either. Black has a lot of points. I personally think white's better, but it's unclear. So, white plays this, white plays here to start creating, actually white's going to create a Ko here. It's not really a Ko, it's more of a squeeze. And so now black's forced to take these stones off. So basically through this sequence, white's going to get very strong on the outside since black has to take, or fill in these extra liberties. Even though black wins the capturing race, forcing black to take these is going to help white. White plays this as a Ko threat. Black wedges and just ends the Ko basically, and white comes up. So now we can notice, even though the shapes are very messy, we notice that there's this huge framework developing that these black stones are trapped in. And that's just through this nice sacrificing technique in the upper right. Black comes here. We don't want to block. Blocking would lead to a crosscut, which gives black a lot of options for a local life. And we come up. Black pushes down, and this is this reverts to a classic Ko shape from like a knight's enclosure with a 3/3 invasion. But here's the thing: black can't win this Ko. Where are black's Ko threats? Everything white has is super thick, super alive, and the things that aren't are easy to give up. Whereas black has these groups that are surrounded and are a move away from death anyway, as we can see. So this Ko is really impossible, and this throw-in, for black. So white has no fear of losing this Ko. So this is just an exchange to isolate the group because black realizes he can't, he can't win the Ko, and then so defends. Now, if you're white and you're an amateur player, you're probably thinking, oh, I'm going to end this Ko. But no, you can't lose this Ko. You're what's called a Ko master. You're in a position where you can't lose the Ko, so there's no need for you to end it. But many players would feel very uncomfortable with this, I think, because they feel like, well, if I lose this Ko, I might, lose this entire upper left corner. My middle group over here gets weak. But realizing just how difficult a Ko is, and really counting like how many threats you have. You have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 threats. Another one here. And black really doesn't have any big threat for you. Means that, you know, you can just continue this go. And so black says, okay, yeah, I can't win this go, better sacrifice those stones and make shape. And then white ends the go, because you basically don't want to have to connect like this, because then there's still Aji here to be abused. So this is a much thicker shape, making life. Black says, okay, I'm going to squeeze, but white says, no, it's okay. I'm actually connected here, and even if you push up, I can cut. So white's going to reduce the potential on the left. And this group of blacks is actually still not quite really alive, right? Like, this is not an I, no matter what, really. Like, H19 is not necessarily Sente, because we could take at K19. And there's still a peep here. White can't play it too soon, because these 6 stones are pretty easy to give up. But black's not clearly alive yet, so black has to make life and struggle a bit. Now we play the peep, because now black is threatening this group, so it's a good time to peep before we defend. Although I don't think white defends by cutting. And then we attack the whole group. And this stone obviously is aiming at the cut, obviously. So it's a really nice use of strength. And we're going to see something interesting in a little bit. We just isolate the stones, we push up and make a base for ourselves. Again, similar to the earlier ideas, before we can go all crazy, we want to make ourselves strong. Making ourselves strong here also takes points, aims at this, it has good endgame. Also, because we get this stone here, puts little pressure on this, means the invasions on the bottom side are a little bit better, easier. Black wants to play in the most reasonable way by applying pressure to white. If black just defends, right, then white can move like this, start invading and reducing black. In this group, in the corner, it's alive, but it has a little bit of liberty problems. White pushes up to just, you know, seal black. This is just forcing. And black comes here for shape. I think at this point, black's actually in a bit of trouble in terms of points. I'd have to count more accurately, but I'm pretty sure that this game is pretty good for white, because this is actually still open. So black, if just black defends or something. Sorry, I'd have to count, but this becomes quite, I don't know, annoying for both sides. This is still kind of weak. Trying to determine what's the best technique here. But black chose this way to most severely attack white. But gives white the chance to cut and back here and cut. It is really good for profit though to connect like this. Is much better than defending the bottom actually. Because black can still get most of it. But this is a nice technique. And black cuts. So at this point black really needs to defend here. To link everything together. You might be worried about this Atari, right? This is pretty annoying because we might not be able to kill white. But basically this would have to go to Ko, I'm pretty sure. No, I guess it doesn't. Like, this would die, but black's not going to play that. Black's going to play here. And now we're going to end up with a Ko shape like this, where we're taking or take back. If white has to fill it like this, I guess you're okay. My bad. Sorry, I pulled this game up last night, then I ran out of time to do the video last night, so I haven't looked at this in a little bit. So I guess white's okay. But again, so black really should defend here, because this group is not alive. But again, I'm pretty sure black is losing. We could do a quick count. This is 5, 8, 10, 31, 35, 41, 42, 43, 44. That's 49, and this is another 59, 60, not really 60. 59 plus 6, 66 for white. This is 10, 13, 19, 20, 22, 32, 35. 55 plus that bottom right is like 65. I don't know if this game has komi. It's 4.5 komi. So yeah, so white would be basically up by around komi, a little bit. So black has to do something a little bit desperate, but after the Atari and these forcing moves, so these are just the endgame forcing moves basically, white comes back and cuts, and so now this shape is going to end up in ko. But as we still know, yes, this fight is huge. It's absolutely enormous. But white still has a lot of ko threats. We'll see in a second. Oh, okay, so black blocks. Black got this move, Incente. So black had to live with this. If white takes this now, black just cuts and this dies. And white forced here once. But because of the shortage of liberties on this group, black is basically forced into another ko here. Black just defends. I'm pretty sure that white can go here. Unless I messed up. Which is totally possible. Maybe I messed up. No, here, right? Yeah, even if this just connect, then black's dead. So black has to go here, and then you end up in ko. Probably this shape is slightly better, but it's the same thing. So black needs to avoid that. But black doesn't really have ko threats. Black tries to force white into a double ko, but white just kills the group. And there's not really anything that black can do about it. So at this point, black got desperate with this cut, really. But black had already had a very difficult position. White actually profited a lot from the attack and the squeeze in the center, capturing these, surrounding these on quite a large scale, and just pushing into the left. These 6 points, 3 stones, it's actually quite big. But if black had just defended and white, not sure, probably push, you know, just like normal endgame, this center gets quite large. So it's quite difficult. I think the main concepts I wanted to talk about in this game were the early game I thought was very interesting. A lot of ideas of momentum and choshi, kind of the flow or inducing moves. And then as the game went on, I thought this part with the ko, not here, sorry, was quite interesting. Because I think a lot of amateur players, even strong amateur players, would be relatively hesitant to continue making the ko bigger by not ending it, basically. Yeah, that's basically it. And so I hope you guys learned something. I think I really enjoy going over this time period of games, like the 1950s and 60s. I think for some reason I really like the flow of the game in this time period. I feel like people had a lot of distinctive styles and that the games had a lot of more character. I don't know why I feel that way, but I really do enjoy these kind of games. I hope you enjoyed watching and hope you learned a little bit about the game, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you.